David Harris entered the boardroom, expecting routine updates from his executives today. Mrs. Harris sat quietly, her hearing aid visibly blinking but ignored by everyone. Jordan peeked around the doorway, clutching his notebook nervously yet curiously. Executives launched into discussion, speaking quickly, unaware Mrs. Harris could not follow. David noticed his mother frowning, clearly frustrated with the constant miscommunication happening. Jordan inched closer, observing hand gestures and facial cues from Mrs. Harris carefully. Lisa whispered explanations too softly. Mrs. Harris strained to hear, growing visibly impatient. One executive raised a point, assuming her silence meant agreement completely wrong. David frowned, realizing the meeting ignored his mother's needs entirely, as usual. Jordan raised a timid hand, signaling he had noticed the problem immediately. David hesitated, glancing at Jordan curiously, unsure a child could intervene successfully. Mrs. Harris looked at Jordan, eyes lighting with recognition, silently communicating, understanding clearly. Jordan stepped forward boldly, opening his notebook filled with written translations and notes. Executives stared, puzzled, questioning why a young boy had suddenly entered the meeting. Jordan began translating discussions into simple gestures and signs for Mrs. Harris. Accurately, Mrs. Harris's face brightened, nodding approvingly, finally following the meeting with clarity. David leaned back, impressed as Jordan interpreted complex corporate jargon effortlessly and smoothly. Lisa whispered to David, "He's surprisingly accurate, maybe even faster than some assistants." Executives continued talking, unaware their words were now fully understood by everyone present. Jordan's small hands moved quickly, demonstrating financial trends and charts to his mother efficiently. Mrs. Harris pointed to a graph, her gestures prompting Jordan to clarify projections precisely. David realized the boy's translation bridged gaps no adult had managed previously. Executives noticed her nodding approvingly and grew uneasy, realizing their oversight publicly exposed. Jordan paused, then smiled, translating her feedback into concise words for David accurately. David nodded, acknowledging Jordan's contribution, pride mixing with relief for his mother finally. Karen, the senior executive, scoffed, scouting a child's capability to interpret complex discussions. Mrs. Harris raised a hand, signaling Jordan's competence with firm confidence unmistakably. Jordan continued, explaining quarterly reports and investments, catching every nuance perfectly. David felt astonishment as he watched a 10-year-old handle high-pressure corporate translations calmly. Executives glanced at each other, embarrassment creeping in as their arrogance became obvious. Jordan corrected a misstatement immediately, preventing a costly misunderstanding from escalating dangerously. Mrs. Harris laughed silently, its eyes twinkling, showing approval through joyful gestures and signs. David whispered, "I can't believe how effortlessly he's managing this situation professionally." Jordan nodded, signaling he was accustomed to observing carefully and learning quickly under pressure. Lisa muttered quietly, "He's like a miniature executive with perfect instincts for timing." Karen shifted uncomfortably, realizing her dismissive attitude toward Mrs. Harris now looked foolish. David stood, acknowledging Jordan. "Your insights have clarified issues we all misunderstood completely." Jordan blushed, humbly signing, "I only helped her understand what she needed." Executives remained silent, absorbing the gravity of a child managing adult communication flawlessly. Mrs. Harris smiled warmly, applauding Jordan subtly, gratitude shining in her eyes quietly. David leaned forward, asking specific questions, testing both Mrs. Harris and Jordan's understanding carefully. Jordan responded instantly, translating answers and suggesting solutions to projected problems accurately. Executives realized their impatience had blinded them to simple, effective solutions right in front. Mrs. Harris signed a complex directive, and Jordan relayed it verbatim without hesitation. Karen tried to interject, but David silenced her, recognizing Jordan's efficiency unmistakably. David whispered, "This boy just taught all of us a valuable lesson today." Jordan continued calmly, correcting misinterpretations, ensuring everyone understood all nuances precisely. Mrs. Harris leaned back, satisfied that her ideas were communicated clearly. Finally, executives scribbled notes quickly, suddenly respectful of the 10-year-old bridging the communication gap. David instructed Jordan to summarize the discussion for final decisions immediately. Jordan complied flawlessly, condensing complex topics into understandable points rapidly and clearly. Karen's frustration grew as the meeting's momentum shifted entirely under the child's guidance. Mrs. Harris signed emphatically, indicating approval for investment strategies Jordan had clarified perfectly. David turned to Jordan, smiling proudly, impressed by the boy's remarkable focus and patience. Jordan's translations prevented a potential boardroom disaster before it could escalate dangerously. Executives nodded, finally realizing humility and observation were more powerful than arrogance today. Karen attempted to regain control, but David stopped her, emphasizing Jordan's essential role decisively. Mrs. Harris signed again, proving strategic moves with confidence, Jordan relaying each step accurately. David documented Jordan's interventions for official company records, ensuring recognition of his contribution. Jordan quietly smiled, happy to assist his mother without seeking attention or praise. Executives whispered among themselves, impressed by the boy's intelligence and composure under pressure. Karen realized her dismissal of the child had undermined her credibility entirely publicly. Mrs. Harris gestured, signaling Jordan's translation skills were indispensable in future meetings permanently. David promised Jordan a special acknowledgement for exceptional performance, discreetly and respectfully. Jordan nodded humbly, continuing to observe silently, ready for the next challenge efficiently. Karen remained silent, recognizing she had underestimated both the boy and his mother clearly. David called the meeting to a close, satisfied that all points were clarified. Jordan handed his notebook to Mrs. Harris, who reviewed it, impressed with precision carefully. Executives applauded softly, realizing they had learned more from a child than months of discussion. Karen slouched in her chair, furious but unable to contradict the outcome directly. David gave Jordan a private nod, signaling approval and gratitude for exceptional assistance. Mrs. Harris smiled warmly, touching Jordan's hand briefly in silent, sincere thanks completely. Jordan's confidence grew as he realized his skills were valued and essential today. Executives began asking Jordan questions directly, trusting his translations over their own assumptions now. David intervened occasionally, guiding discussions but letting Jordan manage interpretation flawlessly. Karen muttered complaints quietly, knowing she had no authority against the child's accuracy. Mrs. Harris signed a final approval for all proposals, Jordan relaying each with clarity. David concluded the meeting, praising Jordan publicly for bridging the communication gap efficiently. Jordan blushed, quietly signing. I only helped her understand clearly what she needed. Executives whispered in amazement, finally understanding the importance of attentive observation and humility. Karen finally left, defeated, realizing arrogance and ignorance had no place in this room. David thanked Jordan again, emphasizing the critical role of patience and attentiveness today. Mrs. Harris nodded, satisfied her input had been understood completely for the first time. Jordan collected his materials, ready to leave quietly, unnoticed, except by those who mattered. Executives filed out slowly, still stunned by the boy's professionalism and accuracy calmly. David watched proudly, knowing Jordan had transformed a chaotic meeting into an efficient success. Karen lingered outside, realizing her influence had been overshadowed permanently by a 10-year-old. Mrs. Harris patted Jordan on the shoulder, signaling appreciation without needing words entirely. David whispered, "This young man just changed the way we conduct all future meetings." Jordan smiled humbly, understanding his small actions had enormous impact quietly and effectively. Executives returned to their offices, reflecting on humility, patience, and listening more attentively. Karen slouched into her car, furious, but unable to reverse the lesson learned completely. David walked with his mother and Jordan, proud of the clarity achieved in record time. Mrs. Harris waved goodbye, content that her ideas had been conveyed fully without frustration. Jordan left the building quietly, having proven that observation, intelligence, and courage mattered immensely.